All right, so now we've covered the whole part one, which is all of the introductions. Now let's get into the meat of the song. So there's a lot of question and confusion that I receive from students about comping, right? And then how do I accompany myself while I'm singing, or while someone else is singing, or somebody else is playing another instrument? Okay, so let's cover that. What I've done here is I've kind of broken it down into 3 different parts here for you. Okay, so the comping itself, I'm breaking this down into 3 parts to make it a little bit easier for you to understand exactly how this all ties together. Right? All right, so now what I'm going to use is I'm going to use Fly Me to the Moon. I'm going to use the chord progression of Fly Me to the Moon, and I might butcher it a little bit by singing it, all right? But I won't do too much, all right? So one thing you'll notice that I'm doing here is that, let me fix this, is that the first example I have here is melody on top voicings. Now, what does that mean? Well, when I'm going to create a chord voicing, if I can, when I'm accompanying a singer, like, I'm going to try and get the melody as the top note, right? So here, fly me to the moon, right? So that's the first part. Da, 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 da. Okay? Now, why would I do the melody as the top note? If you want to pause the video for a second and think about it, go ahead and do that. But I want you to ask yourself, why would I play the melody as a top note? Okay, here's the reason. One, if you have, let's say I did this note. It's the 9th of the chord, it's a minor chord. All right, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I could do that. You know, that's fine. Except now the melody's right there. Now you have a half step away from the melody. So the singer hears this, and then they have to sing that. So then you might pull them down. Fly me to the moon, and then it goes, it just goes downhill from there. All right. So when you have a note that is a half step away from the melody, it's going to have a tendency to pull the ear towards that note. Okay. So you want to be careful about that. So now I could do this. Fly me to the moon. Because notice I don't fly, okay? So notice that note is far enough away that it's not going to pull the singer into that note. But now if you have an inexperienced singer, myself, I'm an inexperienced singer, okay? I don't sing really at all. So I would want to hear that top note so I know what is my note. Fly me to the moon and let me play amongst the stars. Da 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 da. Now here, da. This is not the top note. This melody, this voicing, but it da 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 da. What I did here is I played the second note that I have to sing, dee da, because that might be kind of a tough interval to hear. So dee da 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 da. Okay. So now, you might think, well, gee, how am I going to be able to do this on the spot? Well, this is why it's so important to know the melody. I've had students ask me, well, why don't you do lessons that just have the chords? Why have the melody in there? Well, because if you don't know the melody, then it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to create voicings that really accompany that melody. And let's just briefly for a second talk about the word accompany, okay? Notice that there is a word in the musical vocabulary called solo, and then there's another word called accompaniment, right? Solo is, hey, you're doing it, you're playing solo, or in a jazz connotation, it can mean that you're improvising, okay? So in a more traditional classical, a solo is that, you're playing solo, right? But now, accompaniment is what? You are accompanying someone else. So that means that you are in a supportive role, right? You're in a supportive role. If you don't know the melody to the song, how supportive do you think you're going to be able to be for them? Okay? It'd be kind of like, telling somebody, oh yeah, all right, I'll show you around town, but you haven't been downtown in 15 years. So you really don't know the area anymore. It's changed so much. Are you really going to be able to give them a good tour? No, probably not. You're probably going to be lost and trying to find your way as well. Okay? So this is why it's important that we learn that melody, okay? Because then it helps us to create voicings that are going to be better suited for accompaniment. Okay? So let me just go through all these voicings. There's my A minor 7. D minor 7. They just pretty straight up. You can go through and, you know, figure, well, I'll tell you quick. Root 7, 3, 5, 7 melody. Root 3, 5, 7 root melody. G7 here, just made a nice open melody. I doubled it down here and played the 13, root 7. Okay, why'd I do that? Why didn't I do that? Well, that's a block chord. I didn't want to do that. I could do that, but that's kind of a stretch. You know, I could do that as well, but I found that that alone, that's fine. It's all I need. It gives me a nice open sound. When I go down to the C, I can also do this. I wrote this in originally, so I might play that. That's my C6, but I decided to just change it to the 5th. Root 3, 5, 7, 9 melody. F major 7, root 7, 3, 5, 7 melody. And then the B minor 7, flat 5, root 3, flat 5, flat 7, root and melody. E7, notice I simplified the voicing as well. This is root 7, 3rd, sharp, what am I saying? Flat 13, flat 7, and then flat 9, okay? And then to A minor 7. Root 3, 5, 7, root, melody. I could also do a 10th if I wanted to. I could change any of these into 10ths if I wanted to. And it really depends if you can reach it. If you can't reach it, then do the root in the 3rd, okay? All right, so that's my melody on top voicings. And what I suggest you do is, rather than, you know, especially if you don't sing, just try humming that melody. Okay? So it's a great exercise. I really, really encourage you to do this. Okay? And then you go on from there. You can continue with, you know, playing the rest of the chords. Okay? In fact, most of the chords are already here. So you can just kind of like reuse a lot of these chords. When you go to the A7, you can use that do do da da dee da da. Okay. All right. So so start with that. Just play the chords with that melody note as the top voicing. Right. Work through that. Okay. Just try either singing the melody or try humming the melody. Okay. Notice we're not adding any kind of rhythm or anything like that. We'll talk about that in the next chapter. All right, just get down these voicings. Because the first step in accompaniment is being solid with your chords. If I'm there like, fly me to the moon and let me play amongst the stars. I mean, you can see how it all falls apart, all right? You have to know the progression. You have to be able to play the chord solid. And you have to have the technique to be able to play the chord without having to bang in order to get it. Like, fly me to the moon, yikes, all right? You don't want to have to do that, all right? You want to have a nice, solid tone. So that's where the grab technique comes in. Okay, so that nice crab motion in the left hand, okay? Just walks down real nice, nice and easy. You just kind of practice that. Whether or not you do Fly Me to the Moon doesn't matter, right? It's just a great progression to work through that cyclical progression like that, all right? So work through that, try humming that melody or singing the melody, okay? And then I'll talk about some comping stuff in the next chapter.